Greetings, whatever time zone you're in. And as per my pops' heating, pulled over, because it's wiser to be pulled over than to be driving and streaming. He told me about a certain someone. I don't know if this person was in New York or not, but this person ran a stop sign and hit and killed someone, vehicular manslaughter. It's negligent, but she's probably going to do a good 6 to 8, if not more years for that, And she was doing a live stream for YouTube. So I have done, don't get me wrong, I've done live streams similarly, and that kind of stood out to me. So as a result, I do my part now, and I make sure I pull over and I don't endanger myself or others. Now, today, we're discussing keeping the frequency up, right? And this is anecdotal. So any evidence is not, scientific. But then again, I do think scientific evidence is lagging. It's almost like if you invest in the markets, right? You want to have a crazy belief in whatever company or project ahead of time, when others would think maybe you're crazy or, that's just too risky, or whatever it is you see, you'd have to see ahead of time and have a belief system. And then if it works, then you clearly win, right? So likewise, there's a lagging. So when it comes to the markets, if you're investing in something that's, let's just use gold, for example, right? Gold has basically been running for the last year and change, right? So if you buy gold at like $4,400, then you're kind of late, right? But if you would have brought gold at $1,800, you'd have to see something ahead of time. And let's just say you'd compare that to Bitcoin, right? And then you'd be like, someone who would think Bitcoin is the far better or superior buy at that time might not have been able to foresee gold go from 1,800 to 4,400. And you wouldn't think gold would outperform Bitcoin. But, if we look at 2025, on the year, Bitcoin is down, right? Whereas gold is up. And you wouldn't foresee that ahead of time when gold was like $1,200. So now, if you were to buy gold at 4,400, that's maybe not the wise thing to do, right? So when I say anecdotal, the evidence for something after it's already mainstream, commercially accepted, and scientifically accepted, it's basically kind of too late already. It's like buying gold at 4,400. You're late. So when you get involved with something ahead of time, when there's uncertainty, you probably stand to get a lot more than if it's a sure thing. So that's what today's live stream is about. It's about keeping the frequency up. Now, what I'm talking about is not investing in the markets. I just use those as comparisons. But it's really about not waiting for science to back you up and then say, okay, it's safe because science tells me it is, right? So like if someone says something and it's like bro science, or it's like a trust me bro situation, and then it's like, what's the source? And you're looking to science because science is clearly lagging. You might be waiting a long time before you get to a place where it's like, okay, science says it's okay, so now I can go full steam ahead. But you might be 18 years older than when you first could have been dabbling in this and could have been experimenting and having some sort of a belief system because you were kind of convinced that it would probably take you somewhere. So with that all being said, in my anecdotal experience, without waiting on science to back me up, because it's clearly lagging, I have noticed that when you keep the frequency up, you are probably going to get what a lot of people aren't seeing. And I'm passing this information because in my own experience, I have noticed it. And what I've noticed is these things are correlated, a lot of them. So much like a journey I took through nutrition to learn what I learned over years, there was a lot I had to swerve because there's so many contradictory and conflicting pieces of information when you're researching and experimenting that it's like, it's super overwhelming. Where you get to a place and it's like, well, this person's a physicist, and this person's a chemist, and that person's very intelligent. That's a physician right there. Oh, that person is extremely knowledgeable. But then it's like, who do you actually go to? Because they're all contradicting one another. And these are all brilliant people. So it's like, which way do you go? There's so much information. It's like information overload, and you don't know which way to go, right? So that was my nutritional journey, you could say, because it was like there was so much conflicting information, and it took me 20 something years to get to a place where I'm like, okay, now I know for sure. But it was ahead of time, because this was before the information that currently exists was out. It wasn't out at that time. So much like that, physically speaking, when I'm correlating volume and keeping the frequency up, you'll have a lot of people, much like a lot of the wise people who were saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't have that spinach, you shouldn't have these, cruciferous vegetables, you shouldn't eat that, and because this will negate that. And it was always something. I don't have a favorite Bible verse, Maverick. That's not to say anything negative about the Bible whatsoever. I just don't have one. Maybe Samson, I could relate, and Delilah. But I just see that it was basically, nowadays I see a lot of people talk about, you can't get a certain physique without tren and GH and testosterone. And it's really weird to me, because it's like any person you see with a decent physique, and it's like immediately you see syringe emojis. And it's like, the person's juicing. It's like, how did this infiltrate our culture where it's gotten to a place where no one can attain a physique. And I credit a lot of that to what I'm talking about here, which is people are not doing the work, the research, the experimentation, and a lot of folks are cutting corners where it's basically, well, if you don't do this, then it doesn't exist and you can't make it happen. And that's ridiculous. Because if you have knowledge, you have power, and when you affect it, you have something that most people are ignorant to because they just don't want to put the effort to find out exactly what it takes to make that happen. Now, when I say keep the frequency up, I'm talking about what a lot of people will say, no, you shouldn't do that. And I'm talking about working. Now, you have to be careful that you don't burn yourself out. But at the same time, you'd be surprised how much you can work where you don't actually have to give your body rest. So it's one of these delicate things where you have to find out by actually doing it, what is the border of overwork and plenty of work that is actually working. And what I have found is when you keep the frequency up, you can get a lot done, and then you get hella gains. You get crazy gains when you find that delicate balance and you make it happen. Now, it's not as simple as just that. That's just the physical part. There's obviously a lot of other things that go into that, right? As far as your habits, etc. Everything you have to put into there. But when we're just speaking about the physical part, you can keep the frequency up and not be worried about, oh, you have to rest. Well, you're not resting when you're going to go get the GH and the testosterone and the TRT and the trend, etc., etc., etc. I saw someone on the comments say, well, let's be honest, that costs you an arm and a leg, right? Referring to some cod that I found at Whole Foods, right? Now, let's be honest. Do we not waste a lot of money for frivolous things that don't really benefit us? Like, are we getting much of an ROI on those things? Probably not. So what does it matter if you spend $2 or $3 extra and then it falls under, well, it costs you an arm and a leg? Well, it's probably worth it. It's probably worth it to spend that extra money because there's a whole bunch of nonsense that we could be spending money on, and we're just doing it because it's like we're following others, it's herd mentality, or it's just we're addicted to it. Because a lot of us have addictive personalities. So then if that's the case, if something is actually giving you an ROI, then you should probably be spending that money on it, because it's worth it. Anyway, I digress. I go back to what I was talking about, which is keeping the frequency up. And when you keep the frequency up, a lot of people, these are the distractions, right? And you have to stay the path, right? Stay the course and stay on the path where you're not being deflected by all the distractions of naysayers that are saying, you know what? You can't do that because your body needs rest. I beg to differ, because in my anecdotal experience, if I would have rested, and remember, there's a balance between overworking, where you burn out, to working as much as you can to where you're getting more gains than you would by subscribing to, you know what, I have to give my body rest. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because you rest too much. Trust, you rest way too much. And you think that's what you should be doing because you're regurgitating information from someone who said you need to rest. I have found that when you keep the frequency up, you'll get results that'll have the next person and the next person and the next person saying you're on trend. You're on TRT. You're on test. You're juicing. Well, when in actuality, you just didn't listen to everyone else who was saying you needed that rest. And you actually experimented, you picked little pieces of information from your own research, you applied it, you removed it, you reintroduced it, and you figured out over a period of time what worked and what didn't. And as a result, you found out, me, anecdotally speaking, through my experience, I have found out that when you keep the frequency up, you'll get some serious gains. And I'm speaking physically right now, purely physical. You get gains. So much so that you'll have everyone around you saying, you're on something. Yeah, I'm on something, all right. I'm driven. And I don't rest easily because people say I need the rest, you know? And I'm almost 50 right now. And I'm not slowing down whatsoever. And I'm on nothing. I don't even take creatine or protein powder. I have no problem making gains. And my genetics are not superior. And I normally all year round have a 6, 8, or a 10 pack. On nothing. Now, this I'm gonna toggle back and forth between two areas, physically speaking. So when it comes to the gym, because remember, like I said, you have to factor in all good habits as well, right? It's not just working out and like keeping the frequency up. It's obviously all the habits. We're talking about sleep, we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about keeping stress levels down, we're talking about proper hydration, UV at the right times for the right amount of time. We're talking about all the right habits, right? You have to do that. If you're not trying to be on trend, and even creatine or even protein powder, I'm not saying you should be doing that and follow like what I'm doing, but I'm just saying, if you're going that path where you're not trying to be on any type of hardcore juice, so to say, well, you have to do the work, right? And that's not easy whatsoever. And then keeping the frequency up means, because we all have busy lives, so in order to keep a lot of frequency daily in your regimen and balance that out with, say you have a family, you have a job, you have a lot of responsibilities, that takes a lot of time and effort and energy, right? And you have to stay driven. And the only way you're going to stay driven is by making sure your nutrition and your habits are up to par. Otherwise, it'll sap your energy so quickly, right? So in order to keep the frequency up, again, you have to not pay attention to the detractors who are saying, oh, no, you can't do that because you're gonna ruin your gains because you're not sleeping enough. How much more can I sleep than 8 hours, 9 hours a day? And you have to be in tune to be able to know if you're burning yourself out or not, or you're getting close to that place, right? So you have to do that by actually going through it and experiencing where that border is, right? And every person is different when it comes to that. Don't just blindly listen to someone saying, well, you have to rest, you know, Sunday's the day of rest, or Saturday's the day of rest, the weekend's off, or like whatever people say, right? No, you have to find that out for yourself. Now, the toggling back and forth, I am going to go, because last time I did a live stream, and man, I knew it would be one of those topics where, you know, there's interest, because Google says so. When you do the research on Google searches, that live stream was crazy. You know, I don't know why. Maybe it was the time, but the topic was related to Calc SD. If you know, you know. And I was talking about PE, right? So when it comes to the back and forth between physical health and making sure your physique is up to par and training regularly, and at the same time like I said, I did a live stream on Calc SD. If you know, you know, right? I got thousands of people tuned in. No one was really saying anything. It is what it is. I don't know if people are embarrassed or what. Like, I have nothing to really be embarrassed about. I'm just putting information out, right? But I find that physically, right? I'm talking about anything. Trouble spots, genetically, whatever. When it comes to calves or lats, back mass, upper chest volume, under the clavicle, medial head, on the delts, you know, whatever it is, whatever your lagging area is, I have found with experience, keeping the frequency up, what that actually means is, like, you don't just go to the gym, work out for 25 minutes, and then that's it, you're done. And then you may or may not work out again tomorrow. No, the frequency means, like, okay, you got home and you're about to make yourself something to eat. And then while you're waiting, in between time, you're doing push-ups or you're doing squats or you're doing something else. That's keeping the frequency up. So you're constantly training throughout the day whenever you get opportunities to do so, like you're a kid again. And then you pick and choose also when you sleep, when you rest, and make sure you have ample sleep and practice all the great habits I just mentioned. When you put all of that into your balance with your busy life and you do that consistently, that frequency that you keep up gets you the gains that then everyone wants to chime in and troll with the syringe emojis. Now, toggling back to PE, it's the same thing, because in the PE world, they'll tell you, like, oh, you need to rest because you're gonna ruin your gains if you're not resting. No, I have found it to be the same exact thing. When you keep the frequency up, now again, when it comes to your body, when you're working out, you have to find what your border is, where, because obviously you don't want to burn out, right? So you have to find that out. When it comes to PE, it's the same thing. So if we're talking about, let's just say you're experiencing edema, right? That's a clear indicator, right? Your body's sending signals. It's basically telling you, like, okay, you got to lay off a little bit, right? But you don't lay off to the point where it's like you listen to these people saying, well, you know what? Okay, I got a blister, or, you know, I got way too much edema, or I got, you know, my lymph areas are swollen, or donut is crazy, or whatever. No, you have to find out where you need to lay off and where the border is, and then find a way to keep the frequency up. And then you get the gains that a lot of people don't get. It's like the teenage boy who's 14, 15 years old, and he's real scrawny and skinny, and he tries everything. He's eating, he's working out like a maniac. He's eating, he's working out, and nothing's working. Nothing's changing. He's still scrawny. Fast forward 10 years, if he kind of stayed with it, what happened? Generally speaking, he's probably not scrawny anymore. He probably has a chest that has developed, his arms, his body, his back. He went from a boy build to now he has a grown man body. How did that happen? Because at that time, when he was 14 or 15 and 16, it seemed like it was hopeless. It's like, this is not working. Like, I can't get big. I can't, like, what? He didn't need the juice. And you might say, well, you know, his hormones were raging at that time. Okay, that's fair to say. But at the same time, I'm telling you, as a near 50-year-old man, without superior genetics, nothing has changed for me. I'm not on juice. I'm not even on protein powder. How do I do it? It's everything I just broke down here. It's keeping the frequency up. And when you toggle back to PE, it's the same thing. You have to figure out where your border is and then dial back slightly so that you can extend that a little bit more and keep the frequency up on a day-to-day basis. So you don't listen to these people where they're like, no, you have to rest, or you're gonna ruin your gains. No, you're gonna get more gains by finding out how you can push to where your frequency goes all the way up. And it usually takes me about 12, 13 minutes to get to my point. Today, it took about double the time, you know? And that's fine, because I felt like this was important to put out there. Keep the frequency up, and it's an important thing because in my anecdotal experience, I have found out that that has worked better than anything else. When it comes to PE, it's been working. When it comes to the rest of the body, it's always worked. And I don't see it slowing down, you know? Like, what do I have to be? Do I have to be 60 years old? Do I have to be 65? Like, it was like back in the days when my mom was always telling me, like, you're going to get married. You're going to get married. I'm like, I don't think so, you know? And it didn't matter what the mitigating factors were in life that so-called prevented. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. So, like, am I still going to get married? It's the same thing. Like, obviously, totally different topics, right? But it's the same thing here with, you know, okay, biologically speaking, physiologically speaking, anatomically speaking, genetically speaking. What do I have to do? Do I have to get to 60 before it slows down to some sort of place? Because I don't see it stopping at 60. I obviously there are changes that happen, but I would love for you all to, you know, be saying I'm on something or certain things can't happen, because it's just a compliment. That's telling me that what I've been doing has been working, you know, while everyone else is cutting corners and then hating on the next person because someone is doing whatever they're doing. And then all you think is they can't do it without cutting corners too. It's not true. So that's really it. If anyone has anything to say or bring up, you know, without trolling, I'd be happy to engage, you know. But that was really what I wanted to bring up today, which was basically just keep the frequency up. Find it in your life on a consistent basis to balance it out in your busy life and make it happen. You know, that's really what it comes down to. It is starting to slowly warm up finally, because it was brutal for the last several days outside. You know, I think starting Tuesday, it's really going to warm up for a few days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday. So basically all week, it's supposed to be a lot warmer than it has been. But yeah, that's really it, you know? I just wanted to make sure I pulled over so I'm not being reckless doing a live stream while driving, you know? And just put this word out because I think it's important, you know? Because it's unfortunate when I hear how people have this herd mentality of just following everyone. Like, you know, if you just go somewhere to someone's posts or to someone's live stream or to someone's shorts, anywhere, social media wise, on any platform, and you just like, okay, I understand everyone's a jokester now, right? Everyone's a comedian. But you're all very negative too. You know, I'm not saying everyone, but there's a lot of negative trolling, clownish type behavior, to be honest. You know, I'm just saying try and spread positivity and love, you know. You'll probably win a lot more. And I get it. Like if someone is giving you ammo to push a lot of negativity, I guess. If that's what you want to do, if you want to lead with negativity, that's on you. But at the same time, I think a lot of people push some serious content out and folks are still leading with not so nice energy, you know? And it's like everyone's a jokester. So with that being said, I'm just going to keep pushing consistently with, you know, positivity and beneficial information that I think could hopefully inspire others and help others. So, you know, we don't need anything that is other than like productive information, you know? Like if folks wanted, like if I'm doing a live stream, I try and do these often, and folks want to come in here and you know, if you all want to carry conversations amongst yourselves, that's cool. That's awesome, you know? But if it's trolling energy that comes in and it's directed towards me, I'm going to swerve you, you know? Now, I could take a joke. I can. But come correct with your jokes, you know? Use your brain. Like, if you're just coming through with, like, low IQ, clownish, trolling negativity, it's like, I'm going to swerve you. And that's really it, you know? But with that being said, I appreciate every single person who checked in, and I value your time. I hope you all have a productive week in front of you after we get past this weekend. And yeah, let's crush this year. 2026 is ours, baby. Like, let's make it happen, you know? But with that being said, again, if anyone has anything they want to bring up, feel free. I spent about a half hour here talking about the importance of keeping the frequency up. I toggled back and forth between, you know, working out and PE work and the importance there, you know, because I honestly think there's a lot of misinformation that's getting passed. You know, I'm not saying I have the best physique in the world, but I built the physique over time that I'm relatively proud of, you know, and to this day, I stay at a place where I'm at a high level, you know, and like I said, I don't see it stopping after 60, you know, and at the same time, PE wise, like, I continue to get gains and I follow my own path and not just regurgitated herd mentality, you know, regimens that it's like, once you understand certain things, like what I did with nutrition, like you hear a lot of conflicting information and it's just like the same way I would swerve trolls is the same way I swerve these so-called experts, because it doesn't matter how many subscribers a person has or what degrees they have. Like, once you learn what you learn and you know what you know, you then formulate your own opinions and you don't even look at them like, wow, that person has like so many, you know, accolades and subscribers and etc. No, you don't look at that anymore, because it's like, you know what you know. So it's like, I just know what you're saying is not what I would follow, because I found out what works for me and it's consistently working for me. So what you're saying is not making any sense to me. And that's what I see in PE, and that's what I see when it comes to nutrition, and especially nutrition, because I spent over a quarter century on nutrition, you know, and when it comes to, you know, I hope I'm I hope you're just joking. You know, I don't want to scare anyone. But when it comes to what I learned with nutrition, what's scary is how powerful your mind can be once you affect it. No, I'm not. And once you do that, nothing can stop you. No one can stop you because you've learned what others are still trying to learn. And then, you know, yeah, I fast often. It has nothing to do with religion, though. And then after you get to that place, it's amazing because now you've reached a certain level where some people are still trying to find out how to get there, and they struggle and they take, you know, years and years and years of trying, and they can't figure it out. And it's something, because you've reached a certain level, you can literally do in days, and it's taking them years and they still can't do it. You see how powerful that is? And that goes with anything. That goes with finances, that goes with your health, that goes with your physique, that goes with pretty much anything. Yes, it has. It definitely has. You know? It definitely has. And you know, I have a cousin, right? He's like a math whiz, and he's like an engineering whiz, right? And I used to like think to myself, it's like, this guy doesn't want to talk to anyone, you know? And I used to always think to myself, like, is it because he's so brilliant? Is it because he's so intelligent? And like, does he just get irritated by others? Or it's like, why is he like so isolated, you know? And it wasn't until I started getting to certain levels myself, maybe not in math per se, but it started making sense to me, you know? And it's weird because it's like, I like the company of others, but at the same time, it's like, when you're not getting reciprocation for the energy you put out there, you're wasting your time with people. You know, it doesn't matter what they say. It's what they do. And when they keep showing themselves repeatedly, you understand that it just doesn't make sense to put your time and energy into others where they're just not reciprocating that. So it only makes sense to then just be in a certain realm where you're not really in contact with others the same anymore. And like I said, it makes sense to me now, you know? But homie didn't have his girlfriend cheat on him, you know? And I know you're now moving to a realm of trolling, but in fact, he's married. He's got 2 daughters, and he and his wife are fine to my knowledge, you know? So that didn't happen. But I understand and I'm single myself. So no, there's no one to cheat on me, you know? And I could care less if a person was to cheat, because I just keep it moving. So yeah, that's really it, you know? And I'll probably stay single for a long, long time, you know? And it's not because I can't get someone. It's just I'm very focused, you know? A focused mind is a powerful one without distractions. So that's how I see it. And speaking of, I do have to fast at some point. You know, I've been putting it off because the temperatures have been so brutal out here in New York that I know, because I don't have very much body fat on me, when I fast, because I don't do normal fasts, I do soft dry fasts, where I basically do at least 30 hours, 36, 38 hours, and there's no water, right? So when you do a dry fast where you're not drinking water and you go a day and a half on the low end and it's 17 degrees outside, yeah, that is brutal. Because it's brutal when you are well fed and well hydrated. But if you are dehydrated with no food and no water and it's 17 degrees outside, I'm just not doing it, you know? So normally I would have fasted probably 3 or 4 times by now, and I just haven't, because it's been really cold, and you know, I'm not too keen of the extreme cold temperatures, you know? When it gets really warm, shoot, I could do a 4-day fast, you know? I could do 196, 100 plus hours, you know? And the majority of it dry. But right now, I'm just going to wait till it's a little warmer. Unfortunately, it doesn't start to get warm until Tuesday. And then it goes all the way up to like the weekend. So I don't know. Maybe I'll use this time to fast. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see. But as of right now, I'm not doing it. It's just really cold and uncomfortable. But yeah, other than that, yeah, that's really it, you know? Just felt like jumping on, hitting you all with a little bit of dialogue involving keeping the frequency up. And it doesn't just apply to PE and, you know, working out. It really applies to everything. You know, some of the things I'm most focused on right now, where I concentrate the most of my energy currently on, is, besides PE and working out, is just financial matters. You know, I talk about it all the time, because when you put a lot of your attention and focus on certain matters, that's what's probably going to wind up getting affected the most, and hopefully in a positive way. For me, financial matters are extremely important, not just because you'll get to a place where you're not stressing money anymore, and then you can buy things or whatever, whatever you're trying to do with the finances. But generally speaking, because we're all stressing over money, when you're no longer stressing over money, the opposite happens, right? Your anxiety levels go down. So now you don't have to fight from within to bring your stress levels down. Sleep alone will do the majority of it. Because if you're financially secure and free and independent, chances are you're not going to be stressed out. So that's probably what you should be focused on. So these are some of the things that I personally focus on the most. Because you can go throughout life where you have this constant nudging stress, and that's like quietly killing you. It's quietly wreaking havoc on your system. Imagine going day after day, hour after hour, year after year, being stressed out because money is something that you haven't figured out yet. And you have that stress in your life for years. I'm talking years. Imagine that stress was no longer there because you became financially free. Then what? Well, then as long as you sleep properly, you're probably going to be relatively stress-free. And as a result, imagine how much happier you're going to be. And then comes everything else as a result of being financially free. Because you have to remember what it took to get there, right? A lot of sacrifice and discipline. And then you have to exert more discipline and sacrifice to be able to not only maintain it, but to further build off of it. And then you can make things happen. And everything should be budgeted, right? It doesn't matter what level you're at. You could be a 6-figure person, a 7-figure person, an 8-figure person, a 9-figure person, or a 5-figure person. Right? But once you're there, the object is to maintain it and keep building off of it. Right? And then you will probably find your anxiety levels, your stress go down as a result. Because you're no longer stressing over money. So, yeah, like I said, that's really it. You know, keep the frequency up. And keep pushing, you know. Don't just blindly listen to what people are saying because they have followers or, they're a so-called expert with a lot of degrees and letters next to their name. And don't just go off of the research. You can't just be a lurker your whole life. You have to actually get dirty and get down and get into it. Like, you have to get yourself involved. If you're just researching all day, all night, and you know everything about something, but you're not actually doing it, like what's that? That's like the fat PT coach. It's like overweight and sloppy, but they know everything. So they're coaching the kids. Okay. Great. Wouldn't it be that much better if you were someone the kids could look up to because you brandish your abs at will and you know everything? So it clearly shows like you can do it right now. Doesn't matter how old you are. You can brandish your abs, you can hit them with jewels, and at the same time, you can show them how to do it. And it's not just this. I'd rather be the triple threat than just have the knowledge. And that's like the lurker who knows everything about something but doesn't actually do it. Like, when are you going to get involved? When are you actually going to put yourself into it and get it accomplished for yourself? Yeah, you know everything. But you'll find that when you actually put yourself into the equation, you'll see that you actually didn't know as much as you thought you did. Because there's a lot that you have to then figure out and learn when you are actually doing something. It's like the difference between an educated mechanic and like a street mechanic who, just learned everything being hands-on. Which one is better? I think the best case scenario, if I'm going to use that coach, and now the coach example I gave earlier, it would be the street mechanic who got educated and then does their thing. That's the best case for really anything. It's like you know your stuff, but at the same time, you do it and do it now, not off of some memory from when you were 19. No, right now. You do it right now. And you're still at a high level. You're right there. Oh, I used to dunk. I'm short. And I used to dunk when I was in high school. Okay, what are you doing right now? Me? I don't even play basketball anymore. Because I have too many injuries and I like to work out. So my lateral movement is kind of not so great because I'll start having an inflamed knee, and then I won't be able to do back squats, right? So I'm wise to know that it's not a good move to play basketball or handball right now. So you can ask me about the gym though, and I could tell you I'm usually pretty close to where I'm supposed to be. And I specifically don't play ball so I could stay at a high level there, because ball just won't work for me because of certain injuries. Now, I have a whole bunch of injuries that I can kind of finagle and go around and stay in the gym and perform at high levels. So then you have to make the determination, like, what are you going to do? You're going to play basketball and risk hurting yourself where then everything becomes inflamed and now you're out of everything? Or are you going to stay in the gym and work out and know you can move and navigate relatively inflammation and injury free? I'll choose the gym. Right? So I think that's the ethos. Like, that's the motto. Like, just stay at a high level when it comes to just about everything. And don't just live off of memories where it's like, I used to be this, I used to be handsome, I used to be pretty, I used to be that, I used to be this. Like, what are you now? Does that just mean you fell off with everything? Oh, now I'm just a dad. Or now I'm just a husband. Or now I just go to work. You know, I think we all should have like zest in life. There should be more meaning. There should be more drive to want to do things. Right? Okay, Happy New Year, right? 2026. So what does that mean? What are you going to do? What are you going to make happen for this year? And I don't mean just your New Year's resolution, whatever those resolutions are. Like, what are you actually going to make happen? You know? And, you know, if you just want to do nothing, kudos to you. Do nothing. And if that's your drive in life, great. Good for you. Me? It's not me. I need to get stuff done at high levels, real high levels. Like, it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit right now. You know? Like, it's literally freezing right now. I could be in my bed right now just chilling. Right? But that's not what I want to do. I want to make sure I'm always up for a challenge. It's 2 o'clock in the morning out here. I worked out all day. Like, I could literally go outside right now. I tell you what the fuck there is to do. There's always something you can do. You know? You can always do something. Like, if I wanted to, I could just get my quads in 32 degrees thicker and stronger, because I'm always gonna stay driven. What's gonna stop me? The 32 degrees? I could be in my bed right now, cozied up. But why do that when I can make things happen? 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, none of that matters. Lucky there's not a bar around here. I'd be getting crazy on the bar, doing pull-ups and muscle-ups. Well, you know, it's good to be productive. So if you're out and about, or if you're doing the graveyard, that's beneficial. There's positivity in doing that, you know? So can't be upset there. I wouldn't be upset regardless, because if you're someone who just wants to, you know, dick around, then so be it, you know? And stillness for me, indigo, is when I go to sleep. So I don't have to think about it, because I'm in that state of relaxation where my body can heal and I can get that proper rest. And I'll get 7, 8, 9 hours, so that there's no excuse. Because when I'm up, I don't have to think about stillness, because I'm just going to get busy. Well, that's good. That's a good thing, you know? Well, that's awesome. Congrats. You know, that's an awesome thing to make happen. You know, there's nothing that I think anyone should be able to say about getting things accomplished, like education, whether it's real estate or, you know, home duties, education. And like I said, for the year, if you have plans and you're executing them and making them happen, kudos. You know, those are real things to make happen. I mean, I'm up, Indigo. You know, I'm not tense as far as like I'm trying to put anyone down, or I'm riled up because I'm trying to, you know, I think this is serious. You know, like I'm maybe intense at times, but it's serious. That's why it's like it's coming out that way. You know, because I value time. I value people's time. And I appreciate people's time, but I value my own time. And it's very important. Like, if I'm going to take the time out to sit here and keep in mind, right? I won't ever ask anyone to like any of this stuff, subscribe, pay for merch, join a Discord, a Patreon, or some sort of membership, ever. And I won't ever verify this channel or collect a YouTube paycheck. So with that being said, I'm taking an hour out of my time to talk about something serious. This is why whenever people come in with trolling energy, I have to swerve it. Because, you know, and it wouldn't be any different if I was collecting money. But I'm just saying all of that to say that I'm taking the time out to pass information that I feel is beneficial. And it's not just for other people. It's for myself as well, because I'm leaving a public trail here. Like it's like I'm holding myself accountable. It's like a journal, you know? But I mean, you know, you can go about life in whichever way you choose to go about life. But I know in my experience, I can't just let it be. I can't just let things happen. Because if I let things happen, a lot of time is going to go by where things are dragging and time is unnecessarily going by. And I value time too much to just let things flow. That's me. I'm not saying your way of thinking, because I'm sure Bruce Lee said the same, right? I'm not one to say that's not a theory and a philosophy that holds weight and is credible, because it is. But for me, it doesn't work. You know, I have to keep pushing. I have to keep making things happen. I'm one of those people, and this applies for almost everything. Like I said, you know, the stillness is when I go to sleep. That's the balance. And the flow happens as a result of something. So the balance is, for example, earlier I was talking about financial freedom, right? When you don't have financial freedom and you're constantly thinking about finances and making sure that gets to a certain level, then you have a certain like incessant stress and anxiety that's there, right? And then as a result, it's literally ticking, and it's bringing your anxiety levels up. But when you get your finances to a place of where you're free, guess what? Your anxiety goes down as a result. So that's the balance right there. So as a result of clearing your financial situation where you become independent and you master that, now your anxiety goes down. So that's allowing you to flow more. And that's the balance right there, right? It's a good thing to have good credit. It's a better thing to have zero debt and high liquidity with disposable assets, with disposable income. So if you have all of that, meaning you're in the 800 club, you have zero debt, and you have high liquidity via disposable income, now you're there, in my humble opinion, right? So I'm pretty sure it's not easy to get into the 800 club. Like, that requires a lot. Like, you have to be responsible, you know? And in order to be responsible, it takes a lot of consistency, you know, and your credit to, yeah, it takes a long time, right? And your and your debt it needs to be balanced properly with how much you're taking out, you know? So, yeah, that's awesome, Bear. You know, when you are able to practice good habits and make certain things happen at a good age, you got to be proud. Like, you have to be proud of yourself, you know? Because there are a lot of people, I was talking about this yesterday on the live stream, where right up the block behind me, when I got this property right over there, an investment property, this dude was telling me his father gifted him two pieces of property right behind me. And now he's out here walking the streets, begging everyone, and he's a crazy alkie, and he's homeless, and he lost everything. His dad gave him those 2 houses. He squandered everything. So when you pay something off before 50, you got to be proud of yourself, because it's easy to squander things in life. You know? Imagine when I seen the dude, when I first got the property, he was telling me how he has this. This is a coherent man. Very coherent. Now, He barely recognizes me. And he's like, his skin is bloated. He's completely red in the face. He's like, he comes out here to the supermarket and is begging everyone for he's not trying to get, food. He's just trying to get the next beer. And he has nothing. And he sleeps out here on the benches. He had 2 pieces of property that his pops gave him. So that's what I mean. Like, when you do something that you should be proud of, I got to salute it, And, and that's what it comes down to when you have a simplistic way of thinking, and it doesn't matter like what your financial standing is, honestly, the more money you make and the more money you have, the more you should try and find ways to simplify your life. Not just because you'll maintain that wealth and that status and keep building off of it, but you'll probably have less stress as a result. And when you normalize that, again, you're going to be even more proud of yourself because you've gotten to that place, But it is sad. But yeah, Indigo, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it, And, you have a good one. But addiction is a serious thing, Yeah, I met a lot of booty warriors in my time, But they weren't called booty warriors. They were called booty bandits. And these gentlemen were warriors of booty, They literally were pirates of booty. So the booty was the actual booty, So, oh yeah, great, awesome. It's almost that time for you to collect, So, congrats on that. You're at a good place right now, Bear. Forrest, Brazil is in the building. I'm in Yonkers, New York, Forrest. Appreciate, you stopping by. Welcome. Greetings. But yeah, Bear, good for you, That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Because like I said, I have met a lot of people who unfortunately that's why I look up to my dad. I look up to my pops. I look up to my parents because they made a lot of decisions that I can say, like, I watch their decisions and how they were strict and how they lived life. And it's like, I could learn so much, and I continue to pay attention to it. And it's like, man, I do my best to apply myself, taking the best points of how they did what they did. And it's like, I'm proud of them, So I want to be proud of myself the same way, I don't know about Maduro over here in NY. I heard he's like being tried over here by New York, but I don't really know too much about what's going on with that, Forrest. So I'm not sure, I'm not really following the news with that, but whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, Sweden, that's awesome, Rosie. What a beautiful place, Sweden. That's amazing. And I could imagine how I'm over here talking about 32 degrees Fahrenheit, right? I could imagine what the temperature is over there. It must be it must be something. It must be something else over there. That's for sure. But yeah, and that's an opposite right there, right? There are a lot of people in life, and I was thinking about that too when I was thinking about, how I'm proud of the way my parents did what they did, how they did it. But I know there are a lot of kids who didn't have that, and they had to learn what they learned, however they learned it. I'm not saying my parents taught me everything like exactly as lessons, but I'm just saying what I got out of the way they did things, not necessarily as lessons given to me, but me extracting from the way they conducted themselves was like, wow, you know, there's so much to learn here and so much to use in my own life as a result of what I seen them do the way they did it, without them even having to teach me because I just extracted it. But that's ridiculous, Rosie. That is crazy. You know? Yeah, she's gonna have to find like a seal or, some sort of walrus or something, because that is something else. Literally, if it's 35 degrees over here in New York City and it's negative 35 over there, that is crazy. That is nuts. Listen, negative 35, I'm not going outside. I'm not doing that. Like right now, I just went outside, did some squats, right? I have a problem doing that. But negative 35? That is, I don't even know what to say about that. Yeah, she's burning ambergris right now. That's great. That's crazy. I don't even have words for negative 35. Oh, Celsius. What is that? What's the conversion? What's the conversion of negative 35? Okay, so now it makes sense because I don't actually know what negative 35 is, you know? I was like negative. I didn't even see the C right there, right? I don't, like 0? Is that about right? 3 degrees, maybe? I don't know. Maybe it's single digits? 3 degrees? I don't know. I'm not, nah. Negative 35 Celsius is negative 31 Fahrenheit? Nah. What is negative 35 Celsius as far as Fahrenheit? What's the conversion? Because, nah. Negative 31 Fahrenheit? That's what negative 35 Celsius is? Something sounds off there. Nah, that doesn't sound right. I'm thinking it's like low single digits. It's negative 35 Celsius is negative 31 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what it is? That is nuts if that's what it is. Listen. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I hear a lot of positive things about Sweden, the Scandinavian countries, but that whole negative thing, that's something different. And I don't know. I can't really say anything about that because that's just for as many positives as there are. Yeah, see, and that's the opposite, right? Because if you're like plus 50 Celsius, that sounds crazy too. What is that, like 100 degrees? That sounds nuts. Yeah, Swedish, it's just, there's a lot of positives there, you know? But, I mean, yeah, it must be pretty, the skies and, probably the sunlight at, half the year or during certain times of the year and all of those things, especially when we're talking about like negative 31, you probably have like northern lights over there as well, right? But it's just that temperature is just, that's just a little too much. I don't know. That's like on the opposite end, Abu Dhabi and extreme hot temperatures and desert like climates. That's just a whole nother thing, We might as well just camp out in, you know, Death Valley somewhere with like large brown tarantulas roaming around and scorpions, because that's just another extreme. I mean, like, how about like Baja California, maybe, something like that. That would seem a little bit more, you know, like Tijuana, some areas like that. That would probably be like the relatively ideal climate. Yeah, 122, no. It's just beyond OD. That's just when you're in the negatives on the low end and you're in the triple digits on the high end. This is ridiculous. Oh man. Yeah, where did you move to now from Abu Dhabi? And why did you move from there? That seems like a crazy place as far as like how they created a city over there in the desert, you know? But I could just imagine that's just I remember when I was young, way younger, and my parents took me on a trip and like one of the stops was, I think, somewhere around there. I don't know if it was Abu Dhabi. It was some sort of a Gulf country. I just don't remember where. And it was like when I walked out, it just hit me, you know? It was ridiculous how it hit me, the temperature. So yeah, I could imagine. Like, I wouldn't have liked it neither, because that's just, like I said, too OD. And nah, not for me. But yeah, where are you at now? Where did you move to? From there to where are you currently at? But that negative 35 is just crazy. That is just, yeah, you guys stay warm though. I hope you do. I don't know if you're still here, Rosie, but yeah, that's just next level. Wow. I'm over here complaining about us teetering on, you know, the border of freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, I hear some things about the locals over there as how it pertains to the treatment of, expats and foreigners, etc., and people who come there for jobs, and you know, not too many positives there for whatever reason. Not exactly sure why, but hey, it's not one of the places I am interested in spending time at. So I wouldn't really know. I haven't really done any research neither. But yeah, that's quite a move from there to Atlanta. But that's something also to be proud of, right? When you've traveled around and you have experiences abroad, and you can say you know you're someone who's well traveled. That's something you can always say. It's like it makes you well rounded, So there's a lot I've seen here based on what you're saying about yourself when it comes to all the different things you've mentioned here, Bear. So good for you. Seem to have gotten a lot done in life, where you can say you've accomplished things and you've made things happen for yourself. Yeah, I can imagine. Generally speaking, because there are a lot of people who don't even leave a 50-mile radius. So if you travel the world, you have a totally different outlook than most people, and I can imagine what the stories are like. Like I said, there's so many people that don't ever go beyond a 50-mile radius. So yeah, I could imagine, it's just when you do a lot of traveling, especially like you just mentioned a year in Abu Dhabi, right? That's a lot of time. In a year's time, you could pick up a lot, especially if there's a lot of immersion, right? You have certain countries where it's like Nigeria, where the people are just like, there's so many languages, it's nuts. I know India has, like, generally speaking, 3 languages, sometimes 4, but like Nigeria, Papua New Guinea, there are certain countries that are just like next level with the languages, Yeah, and I think Hindi is a relatively simple language compared to probably Arabic. There's some languages that are extremely challenging, with tones and pronunciations, and then there are other languages that are like Japanese that are like way more phonetic. So Hindi is one of those languages where it's probably way more simple than many other languages, for sure. Yeah, that's always fun, right? Watching these movies and the way they do their things, the dances and the scores and the romance and the storylines and all of that. It's cute, and it's interesting. Oh, I know nothing about that. This is like this kind of, I think this is like what, near Russia, maybe? Somewhere around there? That sounds crazy. I could just imagine what that's like, you know? That sounds like a nightmare. You might as well just like throw in, Cantonese for that, where you just take it to the extreme of how things are. Yeah, that's what I figured. I thought it was somewhere around there, but yeah, that's something else. Yeah, but I'm gonna start making my way downtown, and yeah, Bear, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you for, engaging and sharing a little bit about yourself and these interesting stories you have, Yeah, I think I'm gonna, you got me interested. I think I'm gonna do some research on that now that you've brought that up. I'm just gonna, look and see what the people are like, what their traditions are like. I wanna learn a little bit about what's going on with them. And yeah, I appreciate that, Bear. I appreciate that a lot, and I value your time. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna end on that note and keep it moving, And till the next time. And I appreciate every person that checked in and chimed in and stopped by. Have an awesome weekend and a productive week ahead of us. Remember, the temperature, if you're in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, temperature's about to warm up this week. So I'm assuming if you're in Georgia, it's probably way warmer, But I don't mean Georgia by Russia, because I'm assuming you said Georgia like as in the U.S. by South Carolina, right? That's not Georgia the country, but Georgia the state, right? Because if it's Georgia the state, I'm assuming the temperatures are going to be quite warm right now in comparison to southern New York where I'm at. Because over here is like I said, it was freezing and now it's definitely freezing. It's 30. Oh, okay, yeah. So Georgia, the country where you were able to get the experience of visiting and kind of understanding how crazy the grammar and the language is, but Georgia, the state where you're living at now. So, yeah. Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, so, yeah. But I will catch you all next time and have a great night. Be sure to post soon and